All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bearded Gear podcast. This is episode number 21, and I've been excited for this episode for a while now. I'm joined today by my buddy CJ Miller, who is the man behind Miller Knifeworks. I just recently got one of his custom kitchen knives, the Malaya, and I've done a full video series on that, reviewed that knife, and loved it. And now we're finally sitting down to kind of hash it out and talk for a while and talk all things knives, not just the knives he makes, but I definitely want to get into those weeds as well. So, CJ, how are you tonight, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It has been a far more interesting Saturday than I typically have. I usually end up getting a lot of my own content done on Saturdays, but that did not happen today, and I'm glad to finally be here doing this.
Right. Yeah, it's been a long one for me. We're in the middle of packing up the whole house and getting ready to move, so that's a big deal.
Yeah, and you've been excited for that move for a while. I know when I first started talking to you, you were planning that move, but it wasn't like happening yet. And now you're like fully in full on moving mode, right?
Oh yeah, we've been planning it for a while. Um, see, we first leave this coming Thursday. We're heading up to Tennessee. Uh, but yeah, we've known the time frame for about a year now
Hmm.
because I'm starting what's called terminal leave, which is all my leave days I've saved up over the years to put me taking leave till my ETS date, which is my
Gotcha.
end terms of service, which isn't until August 9th. So I'm taking a
Okay.
whole 82 days of paid leave. So
That's got to be nice.
yeah, it's pretty exciting.
So, for those who aren't aware, can you describe you've been active duty military up until
Mm.
right now, right? And technically, I guess you still are if you're taking
Right.
all that leave. So, what has been your military, like in a nutshell? What's your military career been like, and how did that all?
Well, I joined the Army in August of 2015, so going on 6 years now.
Okay,
Um, Before that, I was a welder in our small town, and I needed to move up a little bit, make a little bit more money, and provide. So then me and my wife got talking about it, and we started to look at military things. And one thing led to another, and then I got a pretty good job in it. I'm a CH-47 helicopter mechanic, and yeah, joined the Army back then. Been doing it for almost 6 years now.
killer. And you've been a helicopter mechanic the whole way through.
Yeah, yeah. For
Awesome.
See, we've been here in El Paso for just over 5 years because after basic and then completed my job training, it was about 6.5 months after that, and then we moved here. And I've been here for five
Okay.
years. So
And so Tennessee is heading back home, correct?
yeah, we're heading back to our hometown where we were so ready to get out of. Now we're so ready to get back.
That can be the way it goes. Yeah, I remember distinctly thinking as I moved out of my hometown that I would never live there again. And
Mm,
it's funny how things tend to come full circle. And now my wife was the same way. We both grew up in the same town. And now when we talk about it, it's like maybe we could because it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Like cost of living's a little more approachable there. We've got family there, cousins for our daughter, and free babysitters, and like that whole thing becomes pretty alluring. But it's funny how when you leave a place, sometimes you feel like never doing that again, and then
right.
life just changes things on you.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it because we've been. This is a El Paso is a very large city, and
Hmm.
our hometown is probably about 10,000 people. And moving here to about 650,000 people,
Oof.
not including the military, which is somewhere in the 25,000
Hmm.
just here. So it was a big culture shock
Yeah,
moving to a big city like this.
killer, man. So with the move happening, I know one of the things that is affecting the hobby, if you want to call it that, the reason for my channel, Knives, you have packed up all your tools And I talked about this in my full review because I imagine some people after watching that are going to want to talk to you about your knives because I love the knife of yours that I have. You've packed up all your tools, and so you're currently unable to make stuff because your shop isn't set up. What's time frame like on when you imagine you'll be back there, set up, ready to go again?
Well, if everything goes as planned, which it never does, so we'll be closing on the house that we're buying mid-July,
Okay.
and then priority with that's going to be renovations to the house. Um, and I'm shooting to kind of put a mix into knife making as well as starting a new job and renovating the house all together. So maybe around mid to late August is when I want to start firing back up again.
That's a lot of stuff. Starting a new job, renovating a home, and making knives. That's definitely
Right.
more than I want on my plate. Um, so to kind of encapsulate where you're at as a maker as well, I feel like we should probably kind of begin here. How long have you been making, and what kind of started you on that path?
How long have I been making? That's kind of a tricky one because technically started making in early 2018,
Mm,
but I wasn't serious about it. I didn't have any great tools.
hmm
My belt grinder I used to grind my knives, I built myself. The drive wheel on the motor was made out of wood. So I wasn't super serious about it.
Gotcha.
And I played around with it. And then when I deployed in early 2019, got back later that year in November. And then when I got back, that's when I started to, I had all that time to think about it, think about where I wanted to go with it, what I wanted to do. And when I got back, then I just kind of hit the ground running.
Mm,
I tried a lot of new things, really kind of steered where I wanted to go with it, which ultimately led me to culinary knives.
hmm
Um, but so I would say seriously making about a year and a half,
Okay,
roughly.
that's fair. Um, and so you've made knives that aren't culinary knives, and I've seen photos of some of those. But you also, obviously, I grabbed it from the kitchen because I knew we were going to be doing this. I have your Malaya, and this thing is wild. But we're going to talk a lot about this. But what other types of knives have you made along the way that wouldn't fit in like the culinary world?
So when I first started, when I wasn't super serious about it, what got me on the path was I just wanted to make something cool. I
Mm,
had no idea. Like I saw a YouTube video, of somebody making a knife. I'm like, I thought I could probably give that a shot.
hmm
And I made it out of mild steel. I made my own micarta out of some ripped blue jeans. I mean, it was a turd, but it was cool. It was interesting.
Yeah.
And then once I started playing around a little bit more, I wanted to make a good EDC knife, fixed blade that would go in your pocket because
hmm
there's not a lot of those out there.
There
Um,
aren't.
So and it was like a minimalist style. There's so no handle, just a blade essentially, and in a kydex sheath with an ulti clip, and it goes in your pocket. That
hmm
was pretty neat. But I wanted to push the envelope a little bit further. So after I got back from deployment, I started making more outdoorsy knives and played around with some different EDC stuff. Uh, Through my Instagram page down there's some of the older stuff I did, some like smaller fixed blades, like around the 3-inch blade mark.
Mm,
And then I just wanted to I wanted to go from making something that was cool to making something that was useful to making something that excelled at cutting. And to me, what I saw as a really efficient cutting tool would be a hunting knife or a good
hmm
skinning knife. So
Yeah.
I learned a lot about that and what made that good. Um, what made it a good cutter. And one of the knives I got is a good mentor of mine, Steve Miller Knives, no relation.
Hmm.
But I actually won one of his knives in a raffle. I don't know how well this shows up on camera,
I can see it.
but he makes some really beautiful hunting and skinning knives. And so I took this and kind of played on it as to what made it a good knife. It's got a deep hollow grind. It's pretty thick stock. I think it's like 3/16 thick. but it comes down to a really thin edge. So I played off that, figured out what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and designed my own skinning knives. And then, which I have one of those I finished up a few weeks ago anyways. Right here, I'll show you in a minute. But so then I decided what would also cut well, but what is the most used knife that people don't really think about? And I follow a lot of high-end knife makers, and a bunch of them are culinary knife makers. So I want to kind of get into that and see how I could do that. And my first one was turd.
As it should be. Your first of
Yeah,
anything shouldn't be perfect.
it was interesting and it worked, but I always wanted to make it better and better. So I used different steels. I used thinner stock. I ground it a lot thinner. And then I saw where there's a handful of people are doing what's called an S grind in their chef's knives, which is after they do the full flat grind all the way to the spine, they'll take a radius platen, which is it's like a flat platen, but it has a little bulge to it to simulate like a 36-inch radius. And they'll put that right in the middle of the blade. And I didn't have that, but I saw another guy up in Canada. His name is Noah Vachon, of Vachon Knives. He does the diamond grind. And that's where I picked that up from. I wanted to give that a shot. So I asked him if it would be all, I'd get his permission if I could try that. And he said, go for it. You know, nothing's a secret. Do what you want. And so on the first one, I tried it, and it worked out really well. And that's the one that I sent you. You got the very first one that I done.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have known that because it's fantastic and it's even. And yeah, so for those of you who are on YouTube and can see, he's referring to the hollow up here above that kind of primary bevel. But like you explained to me, so the whole thing is flat ground first. Like if you didn't have this hollow up here, it would still be a full flat, right?
Yes. The order doesn't make a difference. I do the hollow first just because it removes material faster. And then when I go to flat grind, it's less material for it to remove on the flat grind.
Gotcha.
But yes, it's essentially, if that hollow wasn't there, it would just be a full flat.
And so the idea behind this in terms of an actual like working application, and I talk about this a lot in the review, is food release, right? And that's one of those things that, like, having not taken the dive into kitchen knives before, I had only heard that term thrown around, like, oh, it's for food release, like on kitchen knives specifically. That's a feature that gets talked about. And I never really knew what I was missing in that way. Like I hadn't really felt the difference because all of my kitchen knives they didn't have features built in like this for food release. And so that was one of the things that stuck out to me the most, was like how much more pleasant it is to cut a whole bunch of stuff, especially if it's like thin slices of something tall in the kitchen, because the fact that it's not just bunching up on the blade and you're constantly fighting with it, falling all over the board and doing weird stuff, like just makes it so much more manageable. But yeah, it's one of those things that, like, the way you talk about doing it, it seems pretty simple, but it's also, even now that I've gotten into this and I've started looking some more at other kitchen knife makers and designs and stuff, just because now I'm like, oh, maybe I should get into kitchen knives. I don't see many others doing that diamond grind. So it's really just that other guy in Canada who you've seen do that, right?
As far as the diamond grind, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there is a few more, but as far as a really a high popularity, he's the only one that I've seen do it. There's a handful of people that do the S grind. I believe we had a conversation talk about Mareko Mamausi, and he does it on all of his. But yeah, it's for food release. So if you're cutting through something, especially something starchy such as a potato, it always sticks to a flat blade. Where with that, it'll fall off a lot easier. Or if you're making a long cut through something like a big slice of fish or a piece of meat, there's less drag as well. So it'll cut smoother and easier. And it also has a big benefit of lighter weight,
Yeah.
which I don't know how a lot of people like their kitchen knives, if they like it more heavy or lighter. I like a lighter knife. I feel like I have a lot more control with it. So that's kind of what I roll with.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about it is how light it is. It literally, like, it's one of those, there's knives every now and then that kind of feel like they defy physics. Like you look at them and you think visually they're going to weigh a certain amount, right? Because your brain pulls off of all the data of everything else you've ever picked up that has been similar. And that's one of those that, like, when I pick it up, it just feels lighter every time than I expect it's going to be when I'm looking at it laying there, which is cool. It seems remarkably light for its size.
And that's something that I like about knives. I don't like big, heavy fixed blades. Like the one I just showed you, the Steve Miller one. It's a heavy fixed blade. It's
Mhm.
really nice and really well made, but it's heavy.
Yeah.
And so one of the first, one of the first reavers that I'd done, I do. It's a model of mine. It's a skinning knife.
Mhm.
Um, I did one earlier this year, and I had a goal. Every knife I make, I set a goal to do something better than the last. And with that one in particular, I wanted to get it made under 6 ounces. It was a
Mm.
4 inch blade. I think it was about 8.5 inches overall, and I wanted it under 6 ounces. And it
Mhm.
came out to right at 4.5 ounces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there goes your ounce and inch mark right there.
Yeah.
And then the Malia that you have, I believe it was like 6.1 ounces
Yeah.
overall.
Sounds right. So on the, you said it's the Reaver is the name of the other model.
Hmm.
To get it down that light, because the construction on a skinning knife is going to be really different from a kitchen knife, just in terms of the type of grind. Like that doesn't have a diamond grind on it, I'd imagine. You're probably
No,
using a thicker stock to begin with. Um, do you just like
on
skeletonize in the handle a lot, or how do you
yes.
bring that down so much?
Well, see, here's one that I have right here that I made a little
It's
while
gorgeous.
back. Um, Thank you. And this one I call it my Reaver Burden Trout. It's a little bit shorter, has a stronger angle to it
Hmm.
because I feel like it would be useful when you're gutting a fish or something. But it is 5/32 thick as
Mhm.
opposed to the Malia, which is 3/32, which is a huge difference.
Right.
And yeah, I skeletonized the handle. I mean, it's Swiss cheese in here. There's barely anything in there, just enough to hold it together. Because it doesn't need to be just a thick chunk of steel because you're not pounding on this thing on a piece of
Right.
wood. It's a delicate cutting tool, and as well, it's got a really deep hollow grind all the way to the spine, which removes
Mm.
a lot of weight. And like it's so thin behind the edge that it flexes just a little.
Oh, wow. That's
But
impressive. So, yeah, that's one of those things that I always appreciate as well is a hollow grind that's still tall, because I feel like hollow grinds get used a lot these days on knives as like a cop out for a really stubby grind. Like if the bevel height is really short, people just put a hollow on it. But the problem is it gets thick so fast that
mhm,
even though it might be thin right behind the edge, it's still not slicey in the end of the day. So the idea that that one is such a tall, it's like a full hollow grind
mhm.
instead of a full flat grind. That's impressive because yeah, I can't think of an outdoorsy focused knife that I've ever handled that will flex at the edge because it's so thin. And I don't know, I feel like too many people try to do too many things at once with a knife. Like they try to make a knife that is tactical and outdoorsy and you can EDC it, and they keep adding these ands, right? And then at the end of the day you've got something that's not amazing at any of them, it's just passable.
Mhm.
And that, like, I would never baton with it, but you just said it's a delicate knife. It's not meant to be like,
Right.
you shouldn't be chopping wood with this. It's for processing game. That
Mhm.
makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, like I feel like certain tools shouldn't be as multi-purpose. Like, I mean, if you want a multi-purpose knife, get a good EDC knife, something like a PM2, where
Mhm.
it's not a delicate flower, but it's not a sledgehammer either.
Right.
So, like with my Reaver, I'm not afraid to take it really thin because it's made to cut into an animal, and the thinner it is, it's going to do that job a lot better. And with that deep hollow grind going all the way to the spine, it's going to move the meat or whatever it is out of the way really easy. So, yeah, I wouldn't, and I don't make a sheath for them. It's a special use knife. Comes in a case just like the Malia.
Hmm.
You don't need a sheath for it.
You pull it out when it's time to process the animal, and then you put it away. That makes sense.
Because then also your subconscious isn't gonna say, "Oh wait, I need to cut this stick. Let me grab my knife and cut it out of the way."
Yeah, I like that, and I think a lot of hunters also they do carry a particular knife for when they're processing the animal. Like they might have a folder in their pocket or like a belt knife. And for some people, it's all the same knife does the whole thing. And not saying that they're wrong either, but I know several people who hunt and they have a specific, like, this is what I field dress the animal with. And that's the knife that comes out of their pack when it's time to do it. It's not the knife that's just in their pocket or on their belt.
Right. And that's what what I wanted to do with that is give you a knife for that moment to make you enjoy that moment. Not saying you're going to slaughter an animal for some sort of bloodlust,
right?
But I mean, it is where I'm from. It's a big hunting community, and it's kind of a big deal. You want to enjoy it. You don't want to slice into an animal and hate every minute of it.
Right. You want to honor the process. Yeah.
Right. You want to honor the animal that gave its life to be on your table. And I also want to make a tool that can be passed down generation to generation.
I dig it. So you've done some kitchen knives now. You've done some of that Reaver model and some iterations of it. As you get back into making, when the shop is set up again, do you plan to like just kind of start cranking out some of those models? Do you plan to do it onesie twosie based on what people order? Or like, what do you see happening in the next step of Miller Knifeworks?
At first, I want to just get set up and get a good routine going. With the big changes, figure out where I can squeeze in time. And at first, I want to keep making the Reaver and the Malia and really kind of perfect it, because like the Malia you have, it came out really well, but it could be better in some areas. And like it's the smallest little details that if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, see, I still, and I've purposely not had you tell me, and I don't know what it would be that you would do better. So it's still, don't spoil it for me, because then I'll see those things too. But
every knife I make, I notice a tiny imperfection, and I'll hand it to my wife, and I just say to her, like, look over it for the next 10 minutes and tell me if you see anything wrong with it.
yeah,
And very rarely does she. But that's what I want to do. I really want to focus my flaws and get them completely out of the window. I want to make the best chef knife I possibly can and the best skinning knife I possibly can. And then once I have perfected that area, then I want to move into the next step, which I think might be prototyping a folding knife.
You've hinted at that with me before, and I would obviously love to see that because I am into folders. That's probably clear to anybody who's listening to or watching this. So for you, I guess this would be a fun segue. What type of folder would you see yourself wanting to make the most? Because there's EDC knives, there's outdoorsy knives, there's tactical knives, there's everything in between. Is there like one that you feel you've kind of already got mapped out in your mind a little bit? Or it's also fair if you want to keep that close to the chest. But
well, I don't have a design in my head at all. But I have an area that I would want to go for, kind of. I would want to just make a really good everyday carry folding knife for the majority of tasks: processing cardboard, cutting zip ties, stuff that I use a knife for. That's what I want to make. And the direction I would take something like that, I have no idea. I don't know if I would want to have a thicker stock with a nice hollow grind. That's what I would want to do because it just looks so good. But for a lot of things that I use a knife for, thinner stock and a tall flat grind, like TRM Atom,
Yep.
is so good. Yeah, exactly. It's so well done and
Mm-hmm.
so well thought out. So that would be the first step in making a folder, is figuring out a good design that I would want to make,
Mm-hmm.
and then going from there, then figuring out how to make it, because I'm not very precision oriented.
Hmm.
I eyeball almost everything.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
you're handmade up to this point.
yeah,
That's a handmade way to do it. Like you're feeling out the building
right.
process.
The issue with being completely handmade to a certain extent, with no, I don't use jigs. Uh, I don't have anything laser cut out. I'm not gloating about that. That's just my preferred way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if I'm going to make a good folding knife, there's got to be a level of precision there.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff you just can't eyeball.
Right. I wonder if you could almost, I don't know if this would work in your mind's eye for the way you want it to go, but I know that there are some places in the US even where you can have like handles cut out. You could have blades, water jet or whatever. You could source hardware. You could have a lot of it like kind of done and almost like mid-tech the process where you're having production components. You have 50 handles and 50 blades or whatever like blanked out for you. And then if you do all the grinding, all the fitting, setting the locks, stuff like that, then I wonder if like even just as a way to get started, that's where
Mm-hmm.
my brain goes is like if you're already set up to grind, then like start by making a folder that you grind. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also I can imagine that's probably not as satisfying as a maker. It's just like doing
Well,
the whole thing.
that's the direction. If I did get into making folders, that's what pretty much exactly what I would want to do. And the other day we were talking about Shane Scorpion Six Knives. If
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken, I believe that's how he does everything. Is he has like his blades water jet cut out and his
Mhm.
handles or lasered or whatever. But that's it. Everything else, and sources hardware and everything, but everything else he
Right.
does by hand.
He's grinding, he's heat treating, he's
Right.
doing all the finishing, all the surfacing. Yeah.
And that's what I would want to do, to keep it as handmade but also proficient,
Mhm.
because hand cutting out handles for a folder and cutting out blades can get really meticulous, especially when you need that precision.
Right. Yeah, when you've got moving parts and things that have to line up for it in like a chain reaction almost. When I was talking to Brian over at Keenison, it was interesting to hear him talk so in depth about like if one little thing goes wrong, the number of things down the line that affects on a folder, it's like exponential, right? And so you're doing a lot of like chasing rabbits down holes to figure out where something isn't quite fitting right a lot of the time when you're making handmade folders like that. And so yeah, I can imagine having some of that process automated for the components that need to fit together correctly would take a lot of the stress out of it. But I don't know. Here I am, and I'm working on having Riat build my knives. So it's easy for me to pontificate about what it would be like going the other way. But I've never even ground a blade, let alone tried to cut out a handle or set a lock face or anything like that. And maybe one day I'd love to, but it gives me so much more respect when I have podcasts like this where I'm talking to the makers who are in that world and doing that because it's so much deeper than I'm even capable of going right now.
Yeah, it does take a lot of practice, and it definitely doesn't just come naturally. Um, but when it comes to like grinding the blade and stuff, that's personally my favorite part, is grinding the bevels.
Hmm.
Get everything to line up, just hogging off material. The rest of it is kind of meticulous. Hand sanding, I hate it. I hate hand sanding with a passion.
Yeah.
Uh, the chef's knives I do are that's all belt ground. That's a belt finish,
Mhm.
because I hate hand sanding, and I think it looks better.
The finish looks fantastic. I've got nothing against a belt satin.
Yeah, I love it, and I think I finished it with Scotch Brite belts on that one, which leaves a really nice, uniform, smooth finish.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helps with the transition from the hollow and the flat. That it kind of smooths it out to where it's not such a hard line,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of hide some of your crimes, if you will.
I dig it. Yeah, no, I don't know. I was just doing my review. It hasn't posted yet, but I was talking about the Swish Bowie, and the new one is the belt satin. And it used to be on the original one, it was their like mirrored stonewashed finish. And it's funny because I was like, I might be on an island here, but I prefer belt satin personally. I'd rather have the belt satin, mostly because the way I use most of my EDC knives, it's like a lot of cardboard and stuff. And so when I'm cutting in the same direction as the grind lines, it just naturally, I find, shows wear a lot less than having even stonewashed. Stonewashed, I find I put straight scratches in knives, not like squiggly random pattern scratches, so it works for me. And I think on your knife, it's like this cool blend of, it is a belt satin, and I can see the direction in which you sanded it, basically, right? But it's also very high shine and like almost polished. So in the kitchen, I'm not cutting cardboard and stuff. I'm cutting like organic material, and it feels smooth and slick. And I don't know. It's interesting. I find like the thinner and slicier a knife is, the more you can tell what blade finishes actually feel like. Because when I've had like really thin slicey knives, like my TRM Atom is DLC this time around, and I've had one that wasn't DLC. And this one, through certain material, I do feel a little bit more resistance than I did with the satin one. And it's
because it
like,
has that kind of coarse, that diamond coating.
it's a little bit gritty, right?
Thing.
And to the hand, or like to my fingertip, it doesn't feel like actually coarse, but compared to like a polished satin, yeah, it's going to be more coarse. And so, yeah, it's just interesting to like get into the minutia of that little of a thing, how much it actually affects cutting performance. But I think the one on your chef knife is genuinely like good for what it's built to do as well.
Yeah, so I used to on the first version of the Malia, which I introduced. Oh, when did I introduce that? I want to say my wife had the first one, and it was on our anniversary. Yeah, we'll go with that. And it's the one. It's our kitchen knife. It's our go-to kitchen knife right now. But and this to speak to how much I hate hand sanding, I actually made uh, a fixture for my belt grinder with a leather backing, and it's kind of angled, and I run the belt in reverse, so it's going up, and I would hold the blade against it with the tip going away from me, and it would sand flat that way because I'm that kind of lazy. But it worked. It worked all right. It was kind of meticulous and made a giant mess all over the wall, but it's fine. Um, but I could notice because the one I sent you, I tested that out myself on like some tomatoes, and I tested the other one, which it has about the same geometry minus the diamond grind, but I could tell a slight difference in that first initial, I'd say, half inch of cut, where the hand sanded one had just a little bit of drag, not much, but just a little bit, and that's because the grinds are going the
Different
opposite
direction.
Yeah, it's going horizontal instead of vertically. And they're sanded the exact same grit, and they're both finished on the Scotch Brite belts. So the finish is the same, but the grind is going in a different direction. So yeah, there's definitely something to speak about the way your grind lines are going versus cutting performance, because when it's all horizontal, you got all these little tiny micro shelves going up the blade kind of catch.
It makes sense, especially like, yeah, to the naked eye, and even like just feeling it with your own fingertips, it doesn't feel, they both just feel smooth, right? But when I look at like, I don't know, like the metallurgists and people who are in that world who do like the crazy, like microscopic, super zoomed in views of steel structure and then even like edge structure and like all that type of stuff. It really shows you how different types of steel are have a totally different structure, the way that they're bonded, and then different types of edges finished at different like grits and like it's just I don't know, it's deeper than I care to like spend my own time, but I find it fascinating when you look at that stuff and you can see visually super zoomed in like that there really is a difference, and then you can feel it sometimes.
Yeah, and I kind of take a dive into it because I'm really meticulous about the edge that I put on a knife, how much bite it has to it, how much tooth is to it, depending on the job that's going to do. Whether I'll stop at 600 grit or 1,000, or I'll take it up to a 2,000 grit and polish. Like with your Malia, I stop at 1,000 grit because that little bit of bite helps with cutting through fleshy things like meat or some fruits. But it's still a high enough grit that it does good in chopping vegetables and stuff like that. Say with my skinning knives, I stop at a 600 grit on my wicked edge, which is a crazy toothy, has a lot of bite to it.
Yeah.
And slicing through paper, I mean, it'll cut, but it's not as clean.
Right.
But if you take a polished edge versus a really toothy edge like that and cut into a deer or some sort of meat, the polished edge, it'll slice into it, but it's not going to just tear into it like a toothy edge will. And even with the type of edge you put on it, different steels act different at certain grits, which is really weird. Say like this one, I have the Spartan Aster and CTS XHP, and it's kind of a toothy edge on it. I think I stopped at 800 grit, and it holds it really well. It does really well at that. But I had a Giant Mouse Ace Biblio in M390, and I tried it at 800 grit, also on my wicked edge, and it didn't seem to want to cut as well. So my M390 knives I take to like a 1600 grit ceramic on my wicked edge, and it does better around there. Still enough tooth to it, enough bite to it, but not like crazy polished and not too toothy.
Yeah.
That's just my findings. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think I saw Pete from Cedric and Ada. I don't remember how long ago it was, within the last couple of months. I also forget which steel it was. This is turning out to be a great story. I think he was showing in one of his videos, he took a knife way up through a progression of stones to like, I don't know, 1500 grit plus, and then finished it with a final pass on, I don't remember how low it was, but like a pretty low grit stone after having taken it up to like a mirrored edge. And supposedly it created this like super long lasting, very impressive edge, way more than finishing low without going past it, or even just finishing all the way up to a mirrored edge. It was like something about taking it that far and then like roughing up the edge that with a stone that made it really last super well. And now I wish I remembered the details, but I'm sure someone in the comments will.
And depending on the task you're doing also and the edge you put on it, like if you're processing cardboard a lot, a toothier edge will do better in cardboard and will last a lot longer. Steel choice out of the question if we're just talking about the edge.
Right.
It will perform better for that. And as opposed to like shaving, well, you don't want to shave with a toothy edge. Right. If you got a straight razor, you want to be a really high polish.
Yeah. It's wild. I keep meaning to get deeper and deeper into sharpening. I have a KME and I've sharpened a fair bit of knives on it, but I don't know. I just enjoy it every time I actually get it out and get into the groove and start doing it. And I like learning about it to an extent, although I do get bored after a little while. I think partially because I just haven't taken the dive deep enough in myself to like really appreciate it when people get deep into the minutia of it. But there is like a special connection that comes with your knife when you put the edge on it. It makes it feel like you're just connected to it on a deeper level because you've had a part in how it's actually performing when you use it. And I need to just start carving out some time here and there to, even though some of my knives don't need to be sharpened, I could sharpen them and I could potentially get them even better than they are now, and then I'll like them more. So it's like, why am I not doing it?
And I haven't even taken just a huge dive into sharpening because, like, I don't go any higher on my wicked edge than the 1600 grit ceramics, just because I don't care for a super polished edge. But one thing I did notice, and I don't know how this method might transfer over to the KME. I'm sure it might be similar. Do you have leather strops for your KME?
I don't have them for the KME, but I do strop externally, like just by hand.
So I have the strops for my Wicked Edge, and what I have found is after I have got my final grip progression on my Wicked Edge, then I'll switch over to the strops, and I'll lower it a degree. So if I'm at 20 degrees, I'll lower it to 19 degrees, so that when I'm stropping, that leather doesn't give way and kind of wrap over the edge at such a microstructure level. And I've noticed a huge difference. And I only strop it 5 or 6 times per side like that, and it has a nice little polish to it, but it still has a ton of bite. And I did that on my Evo 2.0, which just has it's really impressive, the edge that that's put on it. Once I have figured out how my wicked edge works to not round over the tip as much.
Yeah, that's interesting because I used to, when I learned about stropping and started doing it initially, I found I was like stropping a knife for like 10 minutes on a strop, right? Just like basically acting like I was sharpening it on a stone, which is not the way I do it now, because now, like it's just a few passes per side. And I'm really mostly just stropping to maintain an edge, or if at the very end of sharpening, I'm using it specifically to like just finish the edge that I've put on. And to me, it almost feels like glossing the edge a little bit, even if I'm not going for a mirror polish. Like it just puts a different type of smoothness into the edge. And I don't know, yeah, I think it's possible to overstrop for sure. And it's interesting your point about changing the angle of the degree even just slightly to keep yourself from rounding it, because I've done that before. I've made knives more dull by stropping them for sure than they were when I started. And it takes like a certain amount of finesse, I guess.
Yeah, as long as you kind of figure out what you're doing, which none of us really know what we're doing. We're just kind of think we do. But you can definitely overstrop for sure, especially if you got that angle wrong. It'll just destroy your edge and you wasted your time. Whenever I'm finishing a chef's knife like the Malia, I sharpen it on my belt grinder. I'll take it to 1,000 grit. And then I'll go over to strop, and most people will strop till they break the burr off because it forms that burr real strong. But for me to break the burr off, I take the wood part of my strop and just run the bare edge across it just to break the burr. And then I'll hit the strop 3 or 4 times per side, maybe not even that many, just to refine that edge the last little bit and keep that bite to it.
Interesting. So let's kind of talk some more about folders and knife taste. I feel like we've bonded a little bit just messaging over the last while about you've been hunting for some folders that you've now gotten some of. When we started talking just a few months ago, what was your collection like if you were to encapsulate it?
We started having a lot of conversations, around January time or
Sounds
February,
about right.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, beginning of the year.
So, well, I could just start at the beginning, which was about July. This past July, I had a Spyderco Par 3.
It's a good knife. I'm not judging.
Yeah, no. Just the base model. Just the S30V, Black G10. And then from our anniversary, my wife got me the Benchmade Bug Out.
Sure.
Great knife, but that set it off. Like I just wanted another and another. And I went through my fair share of cheap cheaper folders, some like some Civivis, not bad knives, but the budget market.
Sure.
And then I dove into the PM2s, and I had to have another, and I had to have another, and now I'm just down to having one. I got the as a birthday present. Father-in-law got me the Protec Mordax,
Yes.
which is excellent. Just it's so good. Yeah,
I love the Mordax so much.
it's so smooth. And then that made me want another Protec, so I got the SBR,
Nice.
which is great. Then I got a TR3 and sold it to fund something else. Then Microtech has a really good military program, so I got a couple Microtechs, starting with the Ultratech and they're black on one side, blue on the other.
Oh, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they've got three in their service personnel program. They've got the military, which is all black. They've got the rescue, which is red, and this is the LEO for law enforcement officer, which I am not. I just like blue better. And then they've got SOCOM Elite, which I got one of those, and I sold it last week, as well as a LUDT, which I really enjoyed them, but I didn't carry them, and I wanted something else more.
I've been there plenty of time.
Got the Maximum Par 3 on the factory second sale, which I have not found a single flaw with, so I'm very happy with that. The only PM2 I have is the DLT
Crewwear.
Yeah. I went through a few of those and just decided I didn't need them, but I need to have at least one, so I picked my favorite and kept it. Then I took the little dive, thanks to you, I feel, and to.
I hope your wife isn't listening.
Oh no, but she knows. Into TRM, which, as it sits right now, is probably my favorite U.S. manufacturer. I love the community surrounding their knives. I love their knives, first of all, because they're unique and they're very performance oriented.
Super functional, yeah.
Very functional, and not bad looking for functional either.
Nope.
Like there's a little bit of pizzazz to them too, I feel. But I got that. I got the Shadow from you, which I have found is a very hard to come by. So I'm very fortunate. Yeah. Thank you for that.
They're tough to get, even still, and it's been a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it was before that one even showed up, I already ordered an Atom when they did a drop.
Yeah.
Which we'll get back to that, I'm sure, because we had conversations about these two, and I think I'm on the same page you are, kind of. But then I decided to make the big leap into the multi-$100s.
Right.
You linked me up with Renegade EDC, who sent me this one, which has just been a joy. And I mean, I love it. It was my grail for a while. I've been following Rotten Designs for a little while because, first of all, they're just cool looking.
Yes, that's a wild
knife. And now that I have one, it's so smooth. It carries nice. And I'm a sucker for a good hollow grind.
Yep.
It has it. Then, after I sold a couple more, I was holding out for something else, but the money was burning a hole in my pocket, and I had to spend all of it.
I've been there. Yeah.
So I got talked into by you and Kyle into a Conagarius.
There you go.
Which this one is the milled texture. I don't know how well that shows up there. The textured, and also the blue hardware.
Which even the pivot is blue now. That's not something I've done for very long.
So I saw a couple with the regular hardware and the pattern, the texture, the milling on it, and you could get the blue hardware separate. But then I found this one guy selling this with the blue pivot, which you can't get.
Right.
unless you get the knife, because apparently the pivot is honed to the blade itself.
Yep.
I don't know what that means,
Yeah.
but
So
it's important.
I can speak to that actually. My buddy Garrett works over there. I need to have him on the podcast soon. Plus, I'd like to have Bill on eventually. But Garrett was telling me about that pivot fitting process after watching one of my videos. Let me see if I can just pull it up. He's Sharp Aesthetics on Instagram. I hope he doesn't mind me shouting him out. Let's see. Oh, here it is. All right. So after doing my Arius versus CKF Evo video, he sent me this message just explaining some things to me because there are things I kind of talked about but didn't really know the reasons for. So he said specifically about the action, one of the reasons that Koenig knives feel the way they do is because they hone the hole in the blade where the pivot goes through to the exact size of the pivot barrel. Almost all other knives have the hole oversized, causing what a lot of people refer to as an empty feeling. So the hole around the pivot is often slightly too big to give some wiggle room, some tolerance, if you will. Tolerance is probably the wrong word for that. And then, so another thing he said is part of the reason why that CKF falls shut so easily is because how forward heavy the blade is. And the Arius is specifically ground not to keep all the weight at the tip. It's actually kind of tip light compared to other knives that are as drop shutty as it is. So yeah, it's just the way that they hone that pivot internally, I guess, increases the smoothness overall because there's nothing that's able to move around in there and kind of ping around with itself. And they also set up each one for the lockup individually as they build the areas. It's not like if they have a batch of knives, they can't just pull any lock side and any blade and any show side and put them together. They specifically like tune each one as it's being put together to be specific for the lockup, and that pivot is honed. So pretty wild stuff when you
And
consider.
it speaks for it because I mean it's so smooth. It is very smooth, and I thought the Evo was really smooth, which it is.
Yep.
But you can tell a difference, especially in that drop shut, where this kind of guillotine shut, the area feels a little bit more controlled.
Yep.
And it just feels like it's there a little bit more.
It's like a gliding fall instead of just a free fall.
Yeah, like it's falling on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Sick.
Yeah, it's very smooth.
So with your knife collection where it's at now, that's less than a year's time, which is pretty crazy. I guess before we even go to what's next, before getting that pair of three, how much of your life had you been like carrying a folder? Was that something while you were deployed? Did you carry a folder when you were growing up? Did you carry a folder? Was that a thing that was in your life before recent years?
Yeah, before deployment, I mean, I've carried a knife for a big portion of my life. My grandfather actually made slip joints and lockback folders a long time ago. So that got my love of knives, and I always had one, but I didn't ever have a good one because I didn't know there was really good ones out there. Before deployment, I decided I needed a decent folding knife. Here I am, piddle farting around making knives. I needed an okay knife to take on deployment because at the time I think I had like a Gerber paraframe is what I carried around all the time.
A lot of people have been there. Yeah.
Yeah. So before deployment, I got myself a Kershaw Launch 1 and a Kershaw Link. The base Link, not the M390 one.
Yeah. Like green aluminum scales, right?
Yeah, I got that. And then while I was on deployment, I acquired the Spyderco Par 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, that's kind of where my journey into the collecting portion came from. I guess it really started with the Par 3 because it was a great knife. So yeah, that's where it kind of really set off.
I agree with it being a great knife. Yeah, I've probably had I don't know, 10 pair of threes over time. And I've landed on the MaxMet one, but it's worn like 4 different sets of scales at this point. And I love this knife. I just did my comparison cut test video between this and the Microtech OTF the other day.
So that's a fun video. That. I was like, it's so silly how many people think, or rather don't think, that the geometry makes such a big difference. And it really does. I mean, you can set steel aside. And if you can have a great knife in M390, but it's thick, like let's say the SOCOM Elite. Great knife, thick boy, M390, or you could take just a regular S30V par 3, and the par 3 is going to outperform it tenfold. Yeah.
For any slicing task, it will perform better because it was ground to slice things.
Even in the good book of knife engineering, he speaks to how edge geometry can make a blade have better edge retention, no matter the steel.
Yeah, something I feel like Alex Steingraber talked about that at one point too, and it just kind of stuck with me. Like he was talking about how a knife that's thin behind the edge will actually hold the edge for longer, depending on the steel and a number of factors, right? But imagine if you have a TRM atom and both of them are in 20 CV. You've got 2 of them. One is ground thin, like this one, and another one is twice as thick behind the edge, and it's twice as thick a blade stock. Like if you're testing how long the edge is going to last, if you're slicing something like cardboard over and over and over and over, the one that's thicker behind the edge is actually going to last less long because you're creating more resistance and more of the cutting is actually being done by the edge itself and not by the rest of the blade, in essence, right? So when you have a ton of material behind the edge, the actual like acute edge itself is what's doing all of the heavy lifting, and the rest of the blade is just being a burden on that edge. So I think it's funny. People will also obviously sometimes like, oh, well, it all, as long as you put a sharp edge on it, anything will cut. It's like, can cut, but it doesn't mean it's going to do it the same. Like the biggest takeaway from that cut test I did was how hard I needed to push through things. The blade that's thinner and slicier is going to require less force to cut through stuff than something that's thick for no reason. Like just, I don't know. It's amazing to me that people don't get that.
A good way to think about it or look at it or a test to do is like, so take your atom, cut it through an apple. Take the Evo, cut it through an apple. Which one's going to cut through the apple a lot better? The atom is going to cut through that apple so much better because it's less material. I mean, yeah, this will cut through something really well, but depending on what that is, makes a big difference.
Yeah, if the cut you're making is only this deep, then it's not going to matter which one. If you're only going a half an inch through something, because that Evo is really thin, a half an inch into the blade, but it gets thick up at the top. That's the blade stock thickness is going to get you if you're cutting through something continuously. Yeah, people astound me on the internet, but I find it endlessly entertaining, so I'm not necessarily complaining. All right, so you started with the Para 3 was your first like real knife. That got you to where now you have, by all means, an excellent knife collection with some TRMs. You have an Arius, you've got an Evo 2.0. You've got some knives that people who've been collecting for years they're still Grails for them. And you've only been doing it for less than a year, really. So do you have, like, are there new Grails on the horizon now that you've accomplished some of these? Is there anything that's catching your eye lately?
Yeah, there definitely is. And also, of course, they're going to be hard to get. The next big one for me, I really want to try and get a Oz Roosevelt. It's a great looking knife. It seems very functional, but most importantly, I think it's so cool that it's just a one man show.
Yeah,
this one guy does every bit of it himself. It's all machined. It's all CNC. It's not a lot of handmade work. He did a shop tour video, and I don't think he doesn't even have a belt grinder. Like, it's all machine done.
Right.
But it's small American company, and I think that's so cool. That's the best part about it. Like TRM, small company. One of the reasons why I like them so much. There's that. On the lower end, well, not really lower. I've been kind of really eyeballing the Demco 8020 because I want to give it a try. I'm going to shoot for the 20.5. And see, that's the one I want, the 3V. See, now you're just flexing.
Yeah, I just unboxed the 20.5s yesterday. Super cool them that they sent me. I was expecting one and opened the box and there were 2 Demco boxes in it. They sent me one of each blade shape. And even that, like even if they had just sent me one, would have been far too generous of them. But these are sweet. People are right when they say OS 10A isn't exciting and isn't necessarily like an incredible value for a $150 knife, nor is plastic for the scales. But the freaking Shark Lock, man, I love it. I really, really dig it. And the design is great. They fit in my hands super well. And they're just pleasant little knives. And these are so much thinner than the big boy. But these aren't getting me to get rid of my actual, my 8020. Don't worry about that because this thing is a different beast.
Yeah. Just because you get a Camaro doesn't mean you're going to get rid of a tank.
Right. Yeah.
But I think I want to go for one of those whenever they drop, just because I want to try out the Shark Lock, see how I like it. Yeah, OS 10A, not the best, but it's not the worst either.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah. And it costs like a third of what the actual 8020 does. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to say that for $150, plastic and OS 10A is a good deal, but it's not like it's a different design trying to do that. It's the first production knife from Andrew Demko, not going through Cold Steel. It's his production run, and it's using a proprietary lock that he has the patent for and is objectively awesome. I shouldn't say objectively. In my opinion, it is awesome, and I love using it. And it actually works well on the little ones too. It's not like some cheapened down, diluted version of it. It's the real Shark Lock. And yeah, I mean, would I prefer to see it in 20 CV at that price? Yeah, of course. And would I rather not have plastic and have G10 at least? Yep, of course. But it's his first go at a production run, and there's a lot of like proprietariness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Propriety. I don't know how you would say that. There's a lot of propriety stuff in it. Proprietary. So yeah, I don't hate the price, but it's not amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, if it was in like the $180, $200 range, that's ridiculous. If it was around $120, that'd be even better. But it's right in between there where you're paying for the lock that you can't get anywhere else.
Yep.
Probably ever. It's his first production knife, and it's a more approachable size, I feel.
For sure.
So for the majority of people, I would say for me especially, it's a lot thinner. That's the big thing for me. Not so much the length or the height or whatever. It's the girth of it.
Yep.
It's so much thinner, to where I think it'll work a lot better.
I got you. So Oz Roosevelt is on the list. 8020 or 20.5 is on the list. Anything else that's catching your attention, or is that kind of knowing you, that's going to be like a week or two and then you'll be on to the next thing?
Well, if I get a book spot for the Oz Roosevelt, something's got to go. Something expensive has got to go, and I don't know what it would be.
That's going to be a while until his book's open anyways.
Probably the end of this year. I did see something that got me kind of excited. Ferrum Forge is going to be doing production runs of the Stinger and titanium and like M390, like the higher end one. I think probably who does them, and a Archbishop 3.0. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Have you tried the Stinger, the little Nitro V1?
Yeah, I had one and I really liked it.
Great
I,
knife.
I got rid of it because I liked it so much. Uh, Now I got rid of it because I didn't carry it, and then the money could fund something else.
Yep.
But yeah, it was great. The size was just right. It wasn't too small to where it didn't fit in my hands. It wasn't just large. It was a really good size knife, really great knife. And the only complaint I had about it is that it wasn't more premium. I wanted like full titanium frame lock, higher end steel, and now they're doing that. I think the end of this year is when they're supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, I'm in for that. With how much I've loved the Stinger, it for me was the best budget knife of 2020, and I haven't found a budget knife so far in 2021 that I like more than it.
Mm.
So for you, as you've kind of been getting into the weeds in the folder market as like a consumer, as somebody partaking in it, have you found that has your taste evolved, or have you gotten into different things as you've been trying new things? Have new features become more important to you? Or is it all still kind of like drinking from a fire hose, trying to figure out what you like?
It's a mix of all that. My taste has definitely changed a lot. Like a couple months ago, when I got my first PM2, I'm like, this is the greatest knife. So I bought four of them, and then I got some other high end stuff. I got the Mordax. It's all kind of changed. Um, Now I'm really kind of gunning for the bigger stuff,
Hmm.
and I got the Arius on a whim because you talked highly about it. Kyle talked highly about it. A lot of people really love these things and they hold their value, which is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it, and at first I wasn't sure. I really liked the quality. I liked the machining work, but as I carried it more, the more I really like it, and it's going to stick around for a while. Uh, I first got it thinking like, okay, if I don't like it, I'll flip it, whatever, get something else. Now I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
If there was one thing I could change about it, it would be that this area of the blade wasn't so flat.
Mm.
I like a belly. I like a big belly in my knives. That's one of the reasons why I like the Evo 2.0 because it's
It's
all
all
belly.
belly.
All
Yeah.
the Malia I sent you. That I implement things I like into my knives. The Malia is a continuous belly from tip to heel all the way. But as far as a few months ago, where my taste is, a few months ago, I thought this was atrocious and I would never get one. Then I looked at it more and I'm like, wow, it's kind of beautiful and I really want one. Now I have one and I love it. It's one of my most carried knives. Um, I was on the fence about how much I liked the Mordax. Then I got one and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, my taste has definitely evolved in the realm of collecting as to what I like, what I did like and don't like now, what I didn't like and do like now. Yeah, and I'm sure things will change as it goes on as well.
Yeah. I feel that completely. Like it's funny because I think our tastes overlap a lot in terms of what you're into, what you appreciate in knives, but like I go down kind of rabbit holes where I'll want to experience a lot of something and figure it out. And then sometimes I feel like I'm done with it. I move on from it completely. Other times, those things like stick with me. Like the PM2 is a prime example. I have 4 PM2s right now, 5. One that I'm about to give away, I think. But like I have the Scorpion CPM 10V PM2, which is the River's Edge Cutlery exclusive. And that, if I had to only keep one PM2, would be the one because as a tool, which is what I, at its core, see the PM2 as being, that's my favorite steel that they've ever done on a PM2. And so it's like that one's kind of ultimate. But then I also have the Avocado, other River's Edge Cutlery PM2, which is also great. It's in 204P and it's fantastic. I've got a Warney PM2, which is a totally different blade shape, which makes it exciting. I now have the Emerson Wave PM2, which is another different blade shape and was a gift. And it's like cool in that way. And then I've got the Maximet Factory Seconds PM2 that I built with sharp dress knife scales, and it's like fully modded. I acid etched the blade. Like the whole thing is unique. And so to me, it's like the PM2 isn't really an exciting knife anymore, but there's ways that it can still be made to be exciting, like a new blade shape or a cool configuration, or just modding it, like stuff like that makes it still intriguing to me. But at the same time, I'm like, the last month or so, I've gone from never having spent $1,000 on a knife to owning a Holt haptic, and then trading that for a custom Keynesen. And then I just got my Shiro Quantum, and it's like, now I'm in this new realm that for me is unexplored territory, and it took me a long time to get to it, but I'm sure in a couple of months I'll be diving down a different rabbit hole. Like I still am always meaning to like start giving Hinderer knives a try and start getting some of those and feeling out which ones I like, which ones I don't. Try a FireTac, try an XM18, try an XM24. And it's like, it's so much fun to just like use buying, selling, and trading, which is such a strength of the knife market, to let go of things you don't carry so much anymore and try new stuff. And so I like that you're doing that, and that you're not afraid to let go of knives that were your favorite a month ago and keep like going down that pursuit of something new and something different. And it's commendable, because a lot of people are way too afraid to, they're worried they'll regret selling something. And I think that keeps people from experiencing things that oftentimes they'll end up liking more.
Yeah, some of the knives I got rid of, it was a big push. It was like it took a lot to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like I think SOCOM Elite, I liked it a lot. I didn't use it, but it was cool. It was really neat. It thudded out whenever you flicked it out. I mean, hard. And I didn't even mind so much that it was tip down carry, because the way it carried in my pocket. But I sold it and used that to fund my Arius, and it was well worth it. Yeah, there's been a few that I had a hard time getting rid of, but
Yeah.
it's all in the progression of figuring out what you like, upping your collection, and as my collection sits right now, there's a lot of money that's sitting in this drawer.
Right.
So,
But it's fun. And so I guess from your standpoint, how do you, like, since when you're getting something, there's a chance I'm not going to love this, and so I may just end up flipping it. How have you gotten to be aware of like whether something is flippable? Because it seems like you're pretty careful, which is another thing I respect, because I try to be as well, at not just like buying things that you're going to take a hit on, and you'll take a hit. You seem to want to buy things that, in terms of how they sit in the market, if you decide to resell it, you're at least not going to lose money, which I try to do as well. How do you like keep tabs on that, or how do you know what something's going to be like in terms of its secondary value? Is there a place you research it, or?
no, well, I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups, as I'm sure you are. I'm fairly certain we're in a bunch of the same ones.
Yep.
I kind of watch what things go for, what people buy them for. It's like stocks, but very dumbed down in the
Right.
form of steel and composite materials.
Yeah.
And you just kind of watch what people go for. If you can get something on a good deal, if you don't like it, can you sell it for more? Or, like you said, could you at least break even on it? So I'm very meticulous in getting something. Like the Arius, I got it on a good deal because I didn't want to pay too much and then not like it, and then potentially lose a couple bucks. Because I mean, even if I sell it for exactly what I paid for it, when I go to ship it, I'm going to be out shipping money anyways.
Yep.
Which is sometimes just the cost of playing the game, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I got to check it out for the cost of what, $6 at that point.
Right.
But
Plus
yeah,
insurance, hopefully. But
yeah, yeah. But I definitely like to get things that are somewhat more rare because they are more valuable. if I do want to get rid of them, which is a catch-22 because then sometimes I don't want to use those knives as much. Uh, but yeah, like a lot of my collection, well, not a lot, but that's the Evo, the Arius, my TRMs. Those are the 4 rarest knives, and also the 4 most carried, oddly enough. But those are the 4 knives that are the hardest to come by and probably the most valuable in my collection.
Yeah. And sometimes knives are rare because they're just limited. They don't make enough. And sometimes they're rare just because of hype that's unjustified. But a lot of the time, I find the knives that are hard to get, secondary or new, it's a pretty good indicator. Not without fail. Again, sometimes hype is misplaced, but it tends to be a pretty good indicator that the knife is actually pretty good. If not a lot of people are moving them on the secondary, and if they are, if they cost more than they did new, and when they do drop, they sell out quick. Like, there tend to be statistically a lot of good knives in those categories. There's also some sleepers that are like, how do those not sell out? You know, how come more people aren't just getting those, and how come they trade for less than they did new? But a lot of those hyped knives, I find, as I've like played that game, some of the best knives on the market.
Mm-hmm. A good testament to that is the Oz Roosevelt, because we've had that conversation of a knife that, looking into it, probably cost this person $700, and they're selling it for upwards of $2,000. That's bonkers.
Yeah, literally tripling sometimes in
Yeah,
value.
like I didn't overpay, but I paid more than retail for my Evo and my Arius. But that's the market. I mean, that's pretty good, and it's reasonable in that 700 to 800 price range for those 2 knives each.
Yep.
But that Oz is insane, and it's, I believe, not just because it's a good design, it's well made, but the biggest thing is, what am I trying to say? Demand, supply. There we go. Supply is not there because
Right.
he's, up to this point, he's only made 160 or
Yep.
so.
I think he's in the 170s right now as we're
Yeah,
talking, but that's not very many.
no, not at all. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the knife because it's great and I want one, but it's I would never pay $2,000 for it.
Right. Yeah, neither would I. That's one of those knives that, like, I've told this story a bunch of times, but the first time I tried to get a book spot after I had the loaner one that I reviewed, I missed it. And I did everything right. I was there. I was hitting F5 a minute before. I was trying to process as quickly as I could, and it was just gone. It was just those 50 spots that time were immediately vanished, right? And then this last time with 100 spots, even then, technically I missed it. Luckily, I had a safety. My brother-in-law was trying for me as well, and he got one. And it was like obscenely fast how quickly those sold out. And was some of that people who are aware that no matter what spec they get, they'll be able to flip it for at least double, if not triple, what they spend on it? For sure. There's got to be some people who are doing that. But there's also a lot of people who I know are trying to get that knife because it's absolutely fantastic. And for me, when I get that knife, and I just this morning was DMing with Daniel over there, super nice guy from every interaction I've ever had with him. And hopefully once I get the knife, he's going to be on the podcast. I want to wait until I have it because I feel like that will be more meaningful. But he's hesitant, but he sounds willing to come on the podcast. He's just not, that's not his the typical cup of tea. Anyway, when I get that one, it probably won't cost much more than the $500 base price, which I've already paid for the knife. Like, if I add some options, it might go up a little bit, but I don't know that I'll add anything that costs much, if anything. It might just stay $500.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be a knife that goes in my pocket and I cut things with and I carry everywhere and I will just enjoy it. And to me, that's worth spending the table price on.
Mm-hmm.
And if secondary for a basic one, no options, was $750, yeah, it would still be worth it to me. But as soon as you start talking about more than that, paying on secondary for $900 for a $500 knife, I'm out. To me, I can't, I'm not at a point where I can find myself justifying that. And so it has to be new on his knives because there is no way to get one secondary that's not insanely marked up. And you could think maybe a buddy can offer you one or something, but that's also like, I'd feel bad if I had a friend offer me one at table because I would know that they could have just made $1,000 by selling it to someone in the Facebook group instead of giving it to me on a homie deal. Like it's a crazy, crazy secondary, but that's just the way it is.
And see, if I were in that position and I got the knife and I didn't like it, I don't think I could bring myself to sell it for triple. Just because it feels very sleazy to me.
I wouldn't leave that much money on the table either, though. Like,
no. I mean, definitely flip it for a good amount if you can.
Be at the low end of the secondary market.
Yeah.
Don't just try to max it, but yeah, don't.
If people are selling them for like $1,800, which is outrageous, I mean, maybe shoot for $1,000. Sure. Even that's kind of still high, depending on what you got into it. But really, for the fact that because there's some people out there that just really want the knife and can't pay X amount of dollars for it. So if you like the community that much, kind of give back to it, as I see. Don't hurt people. Because
see, I'm with you to an extent. Like if I had a $500 Oz in my hands right now, first of all, I have no intention of ever letting mine go. I plan on just having that knife and letting it be mine, and that is what it is. But if it came down to it and it was like, I'm ready to let it go and there's something else I'm chasing or whatever the reasoning is, like, it's time, I'm going to move this on. Like, if people are paying $1,800 for that knife consistently, then to me, listing it for like $1,400 is like, I'm still being a little bit helpful. I'm coming in just below or at least at the bottom of market. I'm not trying to squeeze everything I can out of it. And it's also like, it's a luxury item at the end of the day anyways. I get that there are people who really want them. And I was that guy who didn't have a book spot for a long time. And I would have loved for someone to offer me one at table price. But it's such just like a non-essential luxury collectible item anyways, that's like, it's the nature of playing that game. And for people who don't like secondary market prices and feel entitled that they should have the object, I just don't sympathize. Like, that's why there's an S30V PM2 that you can go buy off the shelf from any retailer right now. Like, if you need an object that cuts things and does a good job at it, there are tons of options that you can have if what you're looking for is the tool. But at a certain point, especially in like super limited, like custom level game, I think that just is the game. That's the way the market's been since long before I came into it. And it's going to continue to be that way. So to me, like, to leave more than a couple $100 on the table than I could have made by selling something, why not? Like, why not?
I'm not hating on the hustle. It's the dirt bags.
It's the people who buy it to flip it, and that I also hate.
That's the core issue. Because if it weren't for those people, the secondary price on the Roosevelt wouldn't be $1,800 to $2,000.
Yes and no. It's the buyers who set that price. It's what people are willing to pay. If people weren't willing to pay that price and the sales halted at those numbers, then none of the scalpers could do it or would do it because it wouldn't be worth it to them. It's the fact that there's collectors who see how scarce they are and really want to have one for themselves, and they'll fork over the money to do it. And a lot of them will justify it in a number of ways. Like, maybe they have a custom that they bought at table price for $1,000 and it came up in value at some custom division Shiro or whatever, and they just sold it for $1,800, and they look at it as, I'd rather have the Roosevelt than this Shiro that I've got, so I'm going to move some things around, and that's how I get it. And like, people play all these kinds of games to make things happen, but the point is that it's a game that's already in motion, and so I don't know who has the power to stop it other than all the buyers deciding we're not going to buy unless the prices come down. And there's always going to be some scumbag who's like, no, I'll buy it because I want it more than you guys do.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just
Got more money.
it's an inevitable.
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess, controversial secondary markets, the new Sleaze Bowie was something else.
Yes, it was. Before it dropped, people were real mad that it was too
People were
expensive.
upset.
And then after it dropped, they were mad they couldn't get one. And that's just the
And then
ebb and
after they're on
flow.
secondary, they're mad because they're very expensive on secondary.
Right. I don't think they've been that crazy. Like
they
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 could have
weren't.
been crazier.
I think they weren't as crazy because of the controversy before it even dropped.
Yeah.
People were just going to get sniped out of the gate if they listed it for like $800.
Right.
It's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
see, I ended up liking mine way more than I thought I was going to. And it's actually still here. I'm going to loan it to Kevin, left EDC, send it out on Monday, but it's it's like everything but the action on this knife I love. And I didn't think I would because I'd kind of reviewed one before, but it wasn't one that I was allowed to like carry and cut with. It was just one that I got to check out. And carrying and cutting with this knife, I freaking dug it. I really, really liked it. I don't necessarily think like it's worth $400 to me to keep it in the collection forever. Like I'd probably rather turn that into something else relatively soon, but I also enjoy it. It is a nice knife, and Spyderco has released other knives with, I think, even less of a value proposition. Some of their Taichung frame locks that have cost more than that, and I've liked less. So it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it's a crazy game for sure.
Yeah. So for you, as you've kind of gotten to experience some of your favorite knives, or some of your grails, I guess would be the best way to put it, with the Evo and the Arius, and you've got these other knives on your horizon. Have you found that for you as a maker, has experiencing this kind of new caliber of folders and production knives and small batch knives and all this stuff, has it made you consider like making a little bit differently? Have you rethought any of your own designs through it? Have you thought of new designs because of it?
Yeah. um, as I think I'm kind of a conundrum in the fact that my collection and what I make are two very different realms
Hmm.
that very rarely cross over from in a single person. That as far as my collection goes, not a lot of it ties into what I make. Because what's good on these folding knives and what's great about them wouldn't necessarily be great on a chef's knife, and
Right.
vice versa. Um, I don't know where I heard it. I think it was on your podcast a few weeks ago with somebody. I don't remember who, but you were talking about. I think you were talking about me, how I collect these knives, and I also make kitchen knives, and that you finally got into the kitchen knife, and you had all these folding knives, and there are some people that have all these kitchen knives, but only have like a buck 110 for their high end production knife.
They've got their Gerber paraframe, and then they've got $1,000 kitchen knife that they cut with every day. Yeah.
Yeah, and very rarely do those two cross over. Like even some makers that are really into EDC folding knives make EDC knives, like Frankie tactical pterodactyl knives.
Pterodactyl.
Pterodactyl. Yeah, he's a big Spyderco guy. He has a ton of PM2s,
A
and he
lot.
makes really good EDC knives. Um, but he doesn't dabble in, like, say, the culinary knife world. So they're very different. And
Yeah.
like, I know I listened to the podcast Knife Talk, which Mareko Mamasi is on it, and he talked about it before, how he makes these upwards of $7,000-8,000 knives, and carries around a buck knife in his pocket that he got from Walmart and beats the heck out of.
Yeah.
So they're very different realms, and they don't really cross over one to another unless you get into something funky like the Spidey Chef or Leon Ma's kitchen utility folder. That's about it.
Yeah. And even then, those are so different from like, those are EDC knives with some inspiration from kitchen knives, and they tend to be pretty good at food prep. But yeah, it's not like, I don't know. I don't, even having experienced some of those knives, like I've reviewed the Spidey Chef. It's still at that time when I reviewed the Spidey Chef, didn't really like kick me in the butt and make me want to go get a nice kitchen knife either. It was like, oh, cool, this is another folder to check out. And I do think it's interesting, the disparity where I've got thousands of dollars sitting on this desk right next to me in folders. I'd have to count it up, but I probably don't want to. It's a lot of money in folding knives, right? And in EDC fixed blades at this point too. Like EDC type of knives and outdoorsy knives and all that, I've got a ton of. And it took me so long to justify getting a kitchen knife. And it was because you reached out to me about it. And then ultimately I made keeping it work by trading you a folder I already had. And it was like, how did I go this far being this into knives, not caring about what knife I was using in the kitchen so much? It's just kind of wild.
Yeah, a lot of people, I can see where it can, you don't think about it. Like, okay, the kitchen's the kitchen, but my pocket's my pocket. But a lot of people in the EDC community don't really think that the kitchen knife is the most used knife that you mess with. Hands down. Even for me, for the majority of people, if they cook, unless you eat McDonald's or fast food all the time, if you cook your own meals within reason, you're using a knife. Why not make it a good knife? Why not make it to where it cuts well instead of, well, it's dull after you chop 2 potatoes with it, and now you're just kind of hammering through whatever you're trying to cut, and you're smashing your tomatoes and your juice is going everywhere, and it's a bad time.
Right.
Why not enjoy it? Get a good knife. You got 12 Spydercos. You got, all these others. Invest in a good knife that you're going to use a lot more, because I guarantee you'll use that kitchen knife a lot more than you're going to use whatever's in your pocket. I know I do.
Right.
I can't tell you how often I actually use one of my pocket knives. Surprisingly, it's not that often.
I find reasons to, but I'm like a hammer in search of a nail.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting thing too, because like it's so easy for me to quantify. Like if somebody has a really cheap knife in their pocket, and like somebody that I just meet out and about, or a friend of a friend kind of thing. Like if I meet somebody and have the chance to be having a conversation with somebody and knives come up and somebody has a knife in their pocket, that's already like, great. We're going to connect to a certain degree because you have a knife in your pocket. I like that. But if somebody has something like a Gerber Paraframe or a CRKT M16 or something, like some knife that I wouldn't consider a good knife, you could argue that either of those are cutting tools will get the job done. Like they have the baseline of a knife in their pocket, right? But if I were to hand them something like this Shiro Quantum and have them handle it and take a look at it, they would probably, as somebody who carries a knife, appreciate it and get that there's a difference, right? They might not see this as being worth as much as it is, but even if I hand them a PM2 and show them this knife, and if they use it and try it once, they're probably going to start valuing a folder a little bit differently. If they have an experience with a really nice one, they're going to want that most of the time. When you experience something that you already use and then you find a version of it that's way better, you're going to like want the better version because it functions better. It feels nicer. And that's a thing, right? But even as with all of that info, using a kitchen knife every day, I never like made that conclusion for myself. And so I just don't know where that mental block comes from. But then once I did experience it, it was like the light bulb went off and it was like, now I can't go back. Now I can't just use a crappy KitchenMaid or whatever they're called knife, because like it doesn't feel the same anymore. Just like I couldn't carry a CRKT M16 like I did when I was a kid because to me, it would aggravate me because it's not like I know too much now. It'd be like trying to sit through a class of doing standard like addition and subtraction when you have a doctorate in physics. It's like, why are we doing this?
Or like using a flip phone when you have a smartphone. You use the better thing because that's what you've grown accustomed to, and it's what you like, and you can tell the difference.
Right.
If I were to look at it from, say, a different perspective as to all the knives I have, and if I had to choose, just because of how I use knives, if I had to choose between, I could only have a really high-end folding knife, or I could have a really high-end kitchen knife, it would be the kitchen knife, just because I use it more often, so I can tell a difference more so than with, even though I have all this collection of a crazy amount of money in these pocket knives, I can appreciate the chef's knife a lot more. Speaking of which, somebody that needs a Malia, I've got 2 of the 3 of y'all. I got one now. Kevin needs one.
Yes, he does.
Tell him.
He does. Yeah, we are the 3 amigos. We ought to have the 3 Malias. Yeah, that's an interesting question, because if you asked me the same question, would I rather only have nice knives in the kitchen or nice folders? I feel like I'm just so much nerdier and more passionate about folders that it's like, even though I agree, I use the knife in the kitchen more, or at least justifiably use, like not just cutting things for the sake of cutting, but having things that really need to be cut in my daily life. It happens in the kitchen more. I'm just more passionate at the end of the day about folders. So that's an interesting one for me. But luckily, that's not a bridge I need to cross. I can just have both.
Right. And that's kind of something I really wanted to set out with why I reached out to you to see if you'd be interested, is because I kind of wanted to hit a different part of the community, especially at my level. Of a few months ago, I only had like 400 Instagram followers. Now I'm up to 7 something, but I'm still very low in the realm of knife makers. So I didn't want to go after a bunch of home cooks. I didn't want to go after chefs because that market is really flooded and I wouldn't get anywhere. So I kind of look at a different perspective, and I wanted to hit the EDC community and see what they thought. Knife people who have a great appreciation for knives and spend a ton of money on knives, but they don't ever think about kitchen knives as much, and see what they think. And whenever you told me that it completely changed the way you looked at a kitchen knife, makes you want to use it more, that was such a big compliment, because I achieved what I wanted to do. I wanted to change somebody's perspective on a knife, and by making the best chef's knife that I could, and knowing that the small details that I put into it, into the design, the shape, the grind, down to the smaller things like in the finger choil area where your index finger sits, all that's nice and rounded and polished, so it's not a hot spot. It's nice and comfortable. You're not going to get that on a knife from Walmart. So give somebody who loves knives and is passionate about them a different perspective on a different knife that they didn't think about. That's really what I wanted to do. And it's cool that now 2 people have really done that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think it's cool too. Like you said, you specifically, like from a business standpoint, targeted the market of EDC knife enthusiasts. And I don't know. I think in some ways, I sometimes get a little bit frustrated when I see a company that I think is like going after that market, and I don't think they have any like emotional tie or connection to it, because the knife community is a pretty tight knit place. Like the EDC community tends to look after their own. We're very brutal on scammers and people who take advantage, and like it's a tight knit place. And so sometimes there are like companies who make, I don't know, whatever product it is, some auxiliary thing that isn't a knife usually, and they just see the EDC market as a market and not as like a community. And I struggle with brands like that. But the fact that you also make a knife, right? So the EDC world should have an appreciation for it, even though many of us, I can say, didn't, or many still don't, like appreciate the culinary world of knives. They're still knives. So there's a like an agreed upon connection there already, right? And the fact that you have taken the time as you've been like working with this market to become a legitimate part of it and participate in it too. Like you have this cool collection of folders that you're enthusiastic about and you actually care about it and you're on the lookout for new things and you're excited about it. And so it just comes across way more genuine than like a kitchen knife company who's already like big and established being like, we need to hit the EDC market. Let's create a marketing campaign to infiltrate that market, right? Instead, you're like this new maker who is catering to a market that the big guys aren't to, which I think is super intelligent, but you're doing it in a genuine and real way and making real connections and being cool about it and being a real person. And that just, the EDC market loves makers. Like that's one of the things that I've learned for myself as I've gotten higher and higher end in my own knife collecting. And as I've become friends with people who collect way above my level, like so much of it is who the maker is and what they're about, what their process is. And so the idea of there being a maker like you who makes culinary knives and like specific hunting knives and like you have your niche, but you're also like you're a cool maker who has an interesting story, who's humble about it and good at it, and you've taken the time to also learn and get interested in the same things that your market is interested in. It's just I commend it. I think it's really cool.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. One thing that you did say is that I'm good at it. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, I have one of your knives and it's excellent. So
Thank you.
you can't pull that on me because I have your work sitting here and I've been using it like crazy and it's awesome.
Thank you. And I don't know. I really wanted to make the best knife that I could. And I feel up to this point that the Malia version 2 is that. I put a lot of thought into edge geometry, cutting performance, ergonomics, and last but not least would be the aesthetics of it. Because at the end of the day, it should cut better than it looks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do use Nitro V for them, which isn't an astounding steel.
I like Nitro V. I don't have a problem with it.
I love it. It doesn't have a super great edge retention, but that's not a bad thing in a kitchen knife because if you're cutting something, feels a little dull, a few licks on the strop, and it's right back to life. As opposed to if you had a kitchen knife and a lot of high-end makers that do stock removal or sometimes like a S35 VN or something like that, going to be just a little bit harder to sharpen than Nitro V. So in the home cook realm, they don't know a lot about knives. It's easier for them to sharpen, blase, and Nitro V is incredibly tough. So if you're processing an animal or something like a chicken or you're cutting up some ribs or whatever it may be, and you hit a bone, well, you're not going to chip that edge.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some give and some take there.
Yeah, I dig it. And I think it's cool that you're also able to be humble about it and kind of like pull yourself down a little bit because you're still new at it too, which is one of the other exciting things to me. Like you're a younger dude, you're relatively new at making, and for your work to already be this good, like the sky's the limit, right? If you push it and you get your new shop set up and you're focused on it, and obviously you're going to be working a day job and renovating a house, you're taking on a lot. But if you keep going with making, having already like arrived where you are now, I think it's tremendous achievement to have already been here. And it's cool because you sent me a knife, which is just the sample size of me. But Kyle, one of my best friends in the community, now has another Malia and also loves it. And he and I have talked privately about it, and just both of us like gush about the thing. And so I look forward to seeing what your trajectory becomes. And as you get more and more knives into more people's hands, I think it's gonna be good. and I like that you're kind of unwaveringly at the moment, like trying to hit the EDC market, because that's where my friends are, and that's the market I care about. And so I'd love to see more people in this realm realize what I've realized of like how nice it can be to have a really good custom, very cool kitchen knife in your kitchen, and what that does to you as a knife user, because it's like it's a whole nother use case. Like to me, it used to be EDC use case and outdoor use case. Those were really my two things. I don't train for knife fighting or anything like that, so tactical is not really my thing. But like having good gear in the kitchen, it's like this whole third tier of knife use that I get. I do the outdoorsy stuff, I do the EDC stuff, and kitchen is now like part of my enthusiasm, and it wasn't before. So seeing that happen to more people would be awesome.
Yeah, to be able to say that something that I made by hand has given someone a new perspective on a cutting tool, that's really cool. That makes me feel real good about myself. Uh, as far as moving forward, I don't really aim to go really big with it, and I don't want to go full time with it at all, because I enjoy making it so much that I don't want to depend on it. And when I have to depend on it, then it becomes stressful, and then I have to make what everybody wants and not what I want. And right now, if I make something and nobody wants it, okay. I mean, if I don't sell it, I'm still going to be able to pay my light bill.
Mm.
So, staying part-time knife maker / hobbyist is for right now the trajectory for me. That way, I can still enjoy it, have a good time with it, stay more tight knit in the community, focus on what I want to do, keep it small, and that also will allow me to keep my price range reasonable, because handmade knives can get up there really quick. And with where I price things right now, because I'm not depending on it, I'm not using it to support my family, around the $350 range, it's not a little amount, but in comparison to some other makers out there that, not to toot my own horn, I know my work will blow theirs out of the water. Not naming any names, but yeah. and I'm not putting my prices that low for that reason, to try and undercut anybody. That's just what I feel like my work is worth at the moment. More importantly, that's what I feel like my name is worth at the moment, because I'm very small. And even if I did get bigger, I can't say my prices would vary that much. I can't see myself, once I get a knife where I want it and perfection range for me, to be over the $450 mark. I just feel like that would be unreasonable. So, and yeah, I want to give to the community as much as I can, instead of just take their money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's commendable. And I think it's a totally fine like goal for yourself to stay at the level where it stays fun. Like there also wouldn't be anything wrong with you saying your goal is to take it to the moon and make it so Miller Knife Works is a giant company, and like I would respect that as well. But I like that you have thought about it. You've taken the time in your own headspace to figure out like what you want from it. Because I think a lot of people also, I don't know, they haven't really thought what it would mean to like be a full-time maker, have that be what they do, where it's like if you're self-employed as a knife maker, making knives by hand, there's an inherent big amount of risk and stress, and there's a lot that comes with that. And I haven't even done it. That's just from what I've observed, right? I'm sure there are other things I'm not even aware of, but like the way you're describing it sounds awesome. Like if you do something that you like already as your day job, and then your like side hustle, passion project, like side gig that you've created for yourself is within your own hobby, and you get to be more engaged with it by making within it, like that sounds awesome. I think it's a cool way to look at it. But if you decide you want to go full time, again, I won't be mad at you if we're trying to go that route either.
I'm gonna completely shut that option off, but in the realm of security, my first job in this world is to provide for my family,
Of course.
and the second would be hobbies or whatever. So as long as they're taken care of, then everything's open. But as it sits right now, hobby realm, part-time realm is where things will, for the foreseeable future anyways.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that, man. All right. So we have gone, this is about the time I told my wife that we'd be done. And I know you're an old man who goes to bed early. So before we do kind of sign off, where can people who are listening, if you're on YouTube, I'll link all this down below, but if you're listening to this, where can people find Miller Knifeworks or CJ Miller? Where can people look for you?
Well, the best place to reach me would be on Instagram at Miller Knifeworks, all together, no caps, just Miller Knifeworks on Instagram. I don't really have a Facebook page. Well, I do, but I don't use it because I don't like the platform. Instagram is just much better. Yeah, so that's really it. Just Instagram at Miller Knifeworks.
Fair enough. That keeps it simple. Cool. So yeah, again, if you're on YouTube, that'll be linked down below. But CJ, I really appreciate you doing this, man. I hope that this isn't the last time. I'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely.
Especially maybe like once the new shop is set up and you're kind of cranking again. I feel like we should do this again when you're back in your maker zone.
Oh, for sure. And the next shop is going to be a lot that means a lot to me because due through some unfortunate circumstances, both my grandparents on my dad's side have passed away now. My grandmother more recently. But because of that, we have the opportunity to purchase their house that they built in the 80s. And that's what we're doing. We're buying the house that grandfather built. And behind it is a big 40 by 50 foot shop that he also built with a smaller paint booth area, decently sized, about the size of the garage I have now that I'm working in. And that's going to be the
grinding room.
It's going to be the new knife shop. It's where my grandfather worked on tractors. It's where my dad painted cars, who my father has also passed on. And then it's going to be where I do my own handmade venture as well. So it's going to be really special to me.
That's awesome, dude. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, we're really excited, not only to be moving back home, but to be moving home that has a lot of meaning to me because my grandparents lived there and I grew up right next door for 20 years of my life right there. So it's on 100 acres of land. It's the farm I grew up on. It's really special, and it's exciting for me to have all the memories that I made there and take my family so that they can make memories in the same place.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Well, one of these days we'll have to get at least a virtual shop tour or something, because that'll be really, really cool, man.
For sure.
Well, cool. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and it won't be the last time. I've enjoyed that we've, through me getting one of your knives, also been able to just like actually talk a lot and become friends. It's cool to know not only the maker behind something that I use all the time, but to see you be part of the community and to be able to be your buddy in it's awesome. So, yeah, this has been a good time. But Miller Knifeworks on Instagram is where people can find you. We'll do this again soon. And thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate it, guys.